Evening, everyone. Welcome. And this is the first of the. Is this Gregorian? That's what it's called. Gregorian New Year. Yeah, okay. First session of the Gregorian New Year. There's all types of New Years, so this is our Gregorian New Year. Thank Nazam for helping with this and taking on the torch from Liz, who did a magnificent job in, like I said, raising the bar and the quality that that we are able to have right now. So tonight we are going to begin with the first of the Four Noble Truths. For those of you who are familiar with Buddhism, the very first, if you don't know anything about Buddhism, at least you know that there's something called the Four Noble Truths. Sometimes some people prefer not to translate the word Arya. They just call it the Four Arya Truths. And some people translate the word Arya into something else. So it depends on what really sticks it for you. So sometimes I think more in the modern time, they translate the Four Arya Truths as the four facts of existence. And that's more in tune with the ways that we should understand them. Noble truth sounds like something that, you know, some people somewhere over there who are uppity, the kind of thing that they accept. So it's not that kind of thing, but rather the facts of our existence. Okay, to understand it that way. And Arya, it's translated as noble, but it actually means a truth that is superior. Unfortunately, there are some people who call themselves Aryans, and you know, like if you go to almost every culture prior to when cultures are first meeting each other, of course they call themselves, oh yeah, I am superior to you. You know, it's a way of developing some sort of self-pride and self-preservation for the culture. So that everyone, like I heard the German was a word that means like we are real men, something like that. Okay, but because people sort of lose connection as to why the people that they connected to call themselves that, and what were the circumstances, what were the contexts, people begin to think of the word as having some sort of inherent quality to them. But the reason that Buddha Shakyamuni chose that word Arya was because he was thinking of it as more in a sense of spiritually speaking, someone who finally grows up. Okay, and that's why there's always a reference to people saying children, that is people who are spiritually immature. And an Arya is somebody who's spiritually mature, somebody who faces reality as it is, rather than living in a fantasy as to what reality should be for them. Okay, so an Arya is somebody who has allowed themselves to see reality for what it is. Okay, and so the Arya truths, so you could say these are the truth according to somebody who's grown up. Okay, that's what the four Arya truths are. Truth for grown-ups. Okay, you can consider it that way. All right. And I love talking about this, the first Arya truth, because I have a particular pet peeve, some of you know, with some of the ways that we understand the way we understand suffering, especially when we are adolescents in the spiritual path and we are starting to grasp certain aspects of spirituality, and we're trying to understand them. And there's almost like a a phase that we go through in our understanding of things. And sometimes we think the earlier understanding that we have is the ultimate understanding that we're supposed to have, and we try to impose that understanding onto others. And there is a particular understanding out there about suffering that I have a pet peeve against. And I'm going to definitely talk about that. Okay. But we want to understand the four Arya truths, the four truths for grown-ups in such a way that they're not just beautiful ideas that we can write dissertations about and then put them in something and put them inside dead trees. Okay. But things that we're supposed to immediately start to implement in our lives, and it's supposed to govern us, supposed to direct us and guide us in our daily lives. Whatever it is that is going on in your life, the Four Noble Truths should be something dealing with it. Okay. All right. So the format, I would really like to have this one to not just be me sort of lecturing and then you listening, but I would really like to have us to have kind of a dialogue if we can, that is, if I permit that in terms of if I shut up at some point and permit us to have dialogues about, so we can really deeply understand this concept. Okay. And why is it a truth? Okay. And in what way are we supposed to understand it as a truth? All right, format, we'll meditate just for a little bit. And Nazam finally made me aware that you're not hearing the bell I keep talking about. So he taught me how to actually help you to be able to hear the bell. Okay, all right, so we're gonna meditate for about 15 minutes. I'm not gonna talk much. I'll just guide you very lightly. No, you're adolescents now, so I shouldn't be holding your hands all the time. And then we'll begin. So I'm supposed to do this and then do this. So get yourself ready. Communicate to your body. Communicate to your entire being, letting your entire being know that you're inviting them to enter meditation. And pay attention to how all the different parts of you are responding to this call to enter meditation. And approach it from the understanding that consciously you may not fully understand what meditation is, but your body already knows. Your energetic body knows. The deeper parts of you already know what meditation is and how to get to it. So instead of being the one who doesn't really understand, guiding them with your misunderstanding, let them guide you. Let the body tell you, oh, you want to meditate? Let me tell you how to actually sit and pay attention to that intelligence. And here's the bell. Okay, take a nice deep breath. Usually take the deep breath with holding the understanding, holding the understanding that I'm going to meditate. Take a nice deep breath. And as you release, let yourself go into that posture. And paying attention to the intelligence in the body guiding you to what adjustments you need to make with your body, with your legs, with your arms, with your shoulders, with your spine, with your head and neck. With your mouth, teeth, tongue, with your eyes. Having made some sort of contact with the beginnings of the meditative state, acknowledge it, welcome them, rejoice, The signs arising in the body, welcome them, rejoice in their presence. The sense of calming, the sense of pleasantness, slowly arising. The distinctive sensations, making you aware that this is body, your body. The presentness, the vividness of these appearances. Notice the same similar signs energetically. Notice the similar signs also in the breath itself, a sense of calming, a sense of pleasantness. Welcome them, rejoice in their presence. That sense you had of letting go as you were breathing out, continue to have that sense of letting go. Connect with it in an energetic way. And notice how when you take on that sense of letting go, notice how the signs are enhancing slightly in the body, in the breath, energetically. Notice the signs arising also subjectively in the mind, in the same distinct way that you say, yes, these are signs in the body, and the way you're able to have a distinctive awareness that these are signs in the breath. Connect with that sense of distinctively being able to notice these signs are the signs in the mind. This is the calm in the body. This is the calm in the breath. This is the calm in the mind. This is pleasantness in the body, pleasantness in the breath, pleasantness in the mind. And as you are aware of inner sensations, notice the clarity with which awareness is aware of them. Notice the vividness. Awareness is aware of them. And holding a rejoiceful confidence that you are indeed in some measure in a meditative state with the intention to stabilize and even go deeper. Take another deep, conscious, full breath. And as you breathe out, let go, let yourself go deeper into the calm, deeper into the pleasantness, deeper into the clarity, deeper into the radiance. And gently bring your attention to the space in front of you at the level of your eyebrows. And consider in that space in front of you, there's a sense of a presence. And it gives you some sort of physiological sensation in the forehead. And consider that the very being, the very way of being that you aspire to, the very way of being that you have this innate, undeniable confidence, conviction in its existence, somehow you're making contact with it. And as you continue to let go in the body, let go in the breath, let go in the mind, the signs enhancing, that sense of presence gets stronger as the signs get stronger. And feel yourself in the presence of a brilliant presence. It is the embodiment of your highest aspirations. And it's appearing right now in front of you as your infallible guide, as if your future self, having fully accomplished all that you wish to accomplish, transcending time and space, is now appearing to guide you. This is how you achieved this state. So its guidance is infallible. And as you feel its presence, just let your heart be open, let your mind be open to whatever guidance it has for you. Perhaps you will not receive any direct guidance now, but that sense of openness to its guidance, let that sense be felt. And sensing that sense of openness, express sentiments of trust, sentiments of deepest respect and gratitude. And just keep feeling that sense of openness, openness of mind, openness of heart to receive the guidance you need here and now. And just stay in that sense of openness towards that bright presence. And every once in a while, just be aware of the different parts of you that may come up, and then just relax that part and let it go deeper into the signs that you are indeed in a meditative state, deeper into the calm, deeper into the pleasantness, deeper into the vividness of experience, deeper into the clarity of experience, deeper into the mind collecting itself. And get ready to come out of the meditation. First, notice the signs that you are indeed in a meditative state. Acknowledge them in the body, in the breath, in the mind, wherever they may be, and rejoice in their presence. Bring that bright presence that is in front of you now to the crown of your head. Feel its shining presence permeating your entire being with its brilliance. And see it eager to become inseparable with you, transforming into a tiny spark of light, descending through the crown of your head. Although a tiny spark of light, it has the same brilliance as before. And see and feel the brilliance descending through the crown and eventually arriving in your heart. And deliberately let yourself reconnect with your immediate surroundings, keeping that sense of openness to be guided. It is that inner guide that brought you here tonight to listen to me. So don't listen to me, listen to your inner guide. So words will be coming out of my mouth, but I hope that your inner guide will correct them for you. Okay. All right. For those of you who want a classical teaching on the Four Noble Truths, I have to say you already had that. And I'm not going to go through the classical presentations of the Four Noble Truths. And the reason I'm doing that is not because that it's not worth it. It's just that most of you probably have had it, and then there are so many books out there that explains that. But we want to be able to dive into it where they're not just nice things to know, but rather things that inform our lives, our immediate life. Okay. In the email, I have to say, of all the classical presentations that I've had by reading and sitting in front of my teacher, when they talk about suffering, the way that suffering is presented, it is understandable how people can tend to have a certain understanding of it because of the way it is presented. Even though it is definitely presented from a perspective of this is what's happening in your existence right now. But somehow, because it is being presented from using examples that you may not have ever had an experience in your life, it gives it a sense of foreignness to it. Like by foreignness, it doesn't seem to be something that you can immediately relate with. And I would say also sometimes because of the life that we have lived, because of the experiences that we've had, when we come across the term suffering, we immediately have our own idea of what that's supposed to be. And we also bring our own history of how we have dealt with it philosophically, psychologically. And we hear with those kinds of understandings, the preconceived understandings, where in order to deal with our experiences, we've already developed certain mechanisms, certain psychological mechanisms to deal with it, certain philosophical mechanisms in order to deal with them. And one of them perhaps is, and probably because of the depth of the experience that we may have had, one of the ways of dealing with it is to completely deny that it's there. And that is a reasonable way of responding to it, of responding to suffering. Because by definition, and this definition I'm giving you, I'm afraid you're not going to find this exact definition in a book somewhere, but it will cover the different definitions that are given out there about suffering. So in order to understand suffering, let us go into our own experiences and what is happening with us, so that we can say, this is what they're referring to. It is this experience that I know, that I'm familiar with. This is what they're referring to, rather than something about, they are hell beings and they are engulfed in fire 24 hours a day. There are these kinds of beings who experience extreme cold 24 hours a day. And because we may have had some sort of experience where we got burned once, or we experienced extreme cold at a certain point, but it doesn't really help us to, if that's what suffering is, we will not be able to fully understand what they are referring to when those examples are given. Okay, but from your own experience, whatever is going on in your life, what is suffering? And perhaps this way of defining it will sort of help you, not that you have to define it using these exact words, but these words may guide you to say, okay, all right, yeah, I know what he's talking about. That I know what this must be what they're referring to. Okay. From experience, you could say suffering is whenever you are having an experience, simultaneously with that experience, there's a wish, a desire not to have it. Okay? So that way, you don't have to be thinking about hell beings in hell for it to be suffering. You don't have to be thinking about things that are not related to you. So whenever you're having an experience, no matter what the experience is, and that simultaneously with that experience, there is a wish, there's an instinct where you no longer want this experience to continue. Okay? So that condition is suffering. And there are different grades of suffering, where there are different intensities of that wish. Like if you put your hand in an open flame, there's a to whatever degree that you're able to withstand the heat, right? You will notice there is simultaneously something within you, an instinct, a desire or wish not to continue to experience that experience. Okay. So let's keep suffering at this very simple definition. Okay. An experience that you're having, and while you're having it, you do not wish to have it. And this will also help us to understand the more sophisticated philosophical presentations about suffering. It will help us really see them in a way that may have been difficult, or may have trouble understanding. Personally, I have to say that experiences are complex. And the reason that I'm saying that experiences are complex is that experiences are not absolute, in a sense of the way you are having an experience is exactly the same way everyone else is having the experience. And even in your own being, there are complexities in your experience. There's a sort of like a general perspective of the experience, but understand that this general perspective of the experience is just simplifying the experience in such a way so that we can have an immediate way of communicating about it or communicating with ourselves with that experience. Okay. But this sort of simplified way of presenting it doesn't mean that it is itself a simple thing. It is just a way to sort of immediately be able to communicate about an experience that is itself complex. Okay. Imagine if you were to describe someone, you would have to describe them every single detail that is presented to you. They smell like this in all these million ways. They look like this in all these million ways. They sound like this in all these million ways. It will take you forever to even describe that one moment. And now in every single moment, that's changing. So there's a way to just being able to communicate with each other. You could say an expedient means to be able to communicate with each other that the mind sort of has a way of sort of synthesizing things, synthesizing experiences, and presenting them as though they are one thing. But understanding is, I'm not saying that I'm saying we should honor this way of being able to present experiences, but at the same time, we should understand that that simple presentation is not the entirety of the experience. Okay, so what experience that I'm talking about? In the experience that while you're having it, there's this wish, there's the desire, I do not wish to have this experience. No matter what it is, someone is giving you honey and you don't want to have honey. That is for you suffering. So suffering doesn't have to be a truck is running over your foot. Okay? Whatever that you're experiencing at the moment that you're experiencing it, you do not wish to experience it, that is suffering. Okay? Perhaps the word suffering is ingrained in your mind to only mean when a truck is running over your foot, then use another word. And that's why a lot of different scholars, a lot of interpreters don't like to use the word suffering. They use different words like dissatisfaction, perhaps. There's one person who's more bent towards the psychological interpretation of things, calls suffering the term dukkha. They call it stress. So in the same way that for some people the word suffering just doesn't quite grab their experience, perhaps the word stress will not quite grab your experience because you already have a formed idea of what stress is supposed to be, of what dissatisfaction is supposed to be, what the word suffering is supposed to be. So don't get hung up on the term, okay? So whatever it is that is going on in your experience, whether it is physical, objective, psychological, in whatever sense that it is happening, and simultaneously with that, there is, I don't want to have it. It doesn't matter to what degree you're able to bear it. Oh, I don't want the honey. I don't want the honey. And then, you're on your 10th spoon. Okay. I don't want it. I wish I wasn't having this honey. Okay. But if you're simultaneously not wanting to have the experience, that is suffering for you. Okay. So in a way, the complexity of it is there is a degree, you could say it is entirely personal. It is entirely personal. And just because it is entirely personal doesn't mean that it's not suffering. It doesn't mean that's not what was being pointed at as being the noble truth of suffering. Okay? It doesn't have to be something that you necessarily share with someone else. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that someone else validates for you in order for it to be termed suffering. Okay? So now that we have that understanding of it, now let's dive into just that definition. An experience that you're having it, while you're having it, you do not wish to have it. You wish to have something else. You wish to have a different experience. And what does that do to you? If you follow that instinct, I do not wish to have this, I wish to have something else, then we will deal with it by training ourselves to develop something called distraction. we train ourselves very well in distraction. Distraction is a mechanism, a psychological mechanism in trying to deal with this experience that we do not wish to have. We develop this mechanism of dealing with it by taking ourselves away from the experience. Not that we stop the experience, but rather we take ourselves away from the experience. Imagine you put your hand towards on a flame, and then you distract yourself from the simultaneous experience. I do not want my hand to have this experience. And if you are successful in distracting yourself, does that necessarily mean your hand stops having that experience? Do your hands stop burning because you've distracted yourself? No. So the instinct, and also it is not that in the very definition, an experience that you're having while you're having the experience, you do not wish the experience to continue. It's not that there's something wrong with that wish. That wish, as you could say, is actually the wisdom within you telling you you are out of alignment. You are not in alignment with your truth. And you need to be in alignment with your truth. You need to be in alignment with your truth. You're at the present holding on to a non-truth. That's what the experience, you could say the nature of the experience. Okay? So the nature of the experience of suffering is because it is due to being out of alignment with truth to whatever degree that you're in alignment. The more you are out of alignment, the stronger the sense of suffering is. Okay. Now, when I'm giving this, and you have, remember, this is complex. When you suddenly think about examples, oh, what about this? What about that? It is not, those examples are not necessarily dismissive of this. But first of all, let us establish, is this a kind of truth that you have experiences, as you are having them, you do not wish to have them? Is this a truth for you? Okay, you say, yes, there are these, I've had these experiences. Then we are simply giving it, you're simply giving it a term. We are calling it, oh, let's give it a term. Let's call it a name. Okay? And we just happen to call it suffering. Okay? So there's the wish to no longer have the experience. This wish to no longer have this experience is a sign of wisdom within you that is telling you you're out of alignment with your truth. And I'm deliberately using the word your truth because that is also complex, right? What is suffering for you, what is misalignment for you may not be misalignment for someone else. What is misalignment for someone else may not be misalignment for you, okay? Yes, there are degrees of distraction where even though there is misalignment, what is misalignment with truth? What is that truth? What is it that in that moment that you're having this experience, what is this wish seeking? It is having an experience that is unwanted. It prefers an experience that is wanted. And that very experience is connected to an experience that we call pain. Painful, right? So what is it? It's looking for something other than pain, other than painful. It is justified and correct for it to look for something else. But the way to actually accomplish that, this is where the paradox begins to come. And this is where the mysticism and all the nonsense things, understandings come in. Okay? So it is not wrong to have that wish, to have a different experience. But how do we go about to have that different experience? And how do we actually fulfill this wish to no longer have this experience? The only way to have this experience where we are no longer having this experience is to be with the experience. Distracting ourselves is somewhat of a skillful means, but it's a skillful means for children because the experience is too much for them. They don't really have any power, any strength to actually be able to sit with it. So it is for them necessary to be distracted. What does distraction do? It gives the appearance of no longer having that experience. Sometimes we need just that space of witnessing ourselves no longer having that experience in order for us to develop some kind of a strength that is necessary. Okay? But ultimately, that is, by ultimately, I mean, how do we actually fulfill the wish to no longer have that experience? Is to sit with the pain, sit with the suffering, that is, be present with it. And that is also a kind of a sign of suffering. Suffering, you could say, is pointing to a danger that we are not present. That's probably what is the misalignment. The misalignment could be that we are not present. That is, what is going on, we're not allowing ourselves to know what is going on. And what is going on is may not necessarily be something, it's not that what is going on is some blissful thing and we're not allowing ourselves to be aware of the blissful thing. And by taking ourselves away from this blissful thing, we are now experiencing suffering. Okay. And not necessarily that. Okay. Here it is. A misalignment occurs. That is, we are not really present with our truth, whatever the truth may be. Okay, whatever the truth may be. I'm angry. That's the truth. If you're really angry, I'm sad. If that's what's actually happening, then you're sad. Okay. And then the sadness, the condition that I do not want this to continue. There's nothing wrong with it. But how do we actually fulfill that wish? Stay aware of the sadness. Stay aware of the experience. And this is where now we're gonna go into seemingly separate roads when we are trying to go deeper into that, staying with the pain. Why stay with the pain? Why stay aware of the suffering? When the Buddha was pointing to the first noble truth, the truth of suffering, he was basically saying, look at your life for what it is. Look at your life for what it is at this very moment. Where should you be? Where should you be? That's what that wish is looking for. That wish somehow knows this is not where I'm supposed to be. Somehow there is this deep knowing within us that sort of knows that, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be blissed out. I'm supposed to be completely filled with joy. And right now, that's not what's happening. And what is happening is this misalignment, right, that we're calling suffering. And it wishes to find that peace. I should be peaceful. It wishes to find that joy. I should be in constant joy. So in distracting itself, the reason for distracting, the mechanism of distracting is in search of that peace, is in search of that joy. But the joy, the peace can only be found not by looking elsewhere, not by deliberately taking our attention away from what is actually happening. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that we should be masochists. Why should we stay with it? Because it is speaking to us. It's basically telling us it is not this. It's a loud, this is not it. This is not your center. This is not the nature of your being. This is not your fundamental nature. That's what suffering is, in a way. It is a shouting from that deep wisdom within you. You are not now aligned with your fundamental nature. Okay. And then the wish to move away from it is that wish to be in alignment with our fundamental nature. So there's nothing wrong with that wish. Okay. And I said, okay, now we start, when in trying to understand this, we're going to start to go in different paths. So in a way, I have to say in a way, and I'm to say in a way, in a very big way, because this is the point that I will argue until infinity with anyone about, okay? What is the purpose of suffering? The purpose, if there is some sort of purpose to it, some sort of cosmic purpose to suffering, is to tell you you're not where you're supposed to be. If there is and if you want to go further into a purpose of some sort of cosmic purpose of suffering, it is in, and it's not like it is pushing aside you're not where you're supposed to be and then choose something else other than that. But in connection with that, get rid of this. The purpose of suffering is that which is to be gotten rid of. When suffering comes to you, your duty is to get rid of it. Its purpose is to be removed. The purpose of the existence of suffering is for suffering, the very experience to be removed. So distracting ourselves in a way is that we are trying to fulfill that, but distracting ourselves is not the way to do it. Okay. And we have to remember that the purpose of if there's a cosmic purpose for suffering, it is, here is something that shouldn't be here, remove it. Here is something that should not be here, remove it. Okay, now that we have this, now we can go to the next step so that you don't go somewhere else and now say, no, I cannot follow you there. Okay. So in a way, so I had to prepare my inner way. Okay. In a way, suffering is teaching you something. In a way, okay? Now, don't go into some absolute thing. Remember, things are complex. In a way, the experience of suffering is a teaching moment. In a way. And why do I say in a way? If the very nature, the very experience of suffering was that you're being taught something very fundamental, then everyone would have been enlightened already, because everyone is experiencing suffering of some degree. How come even nobody's not fully well enlightened yet? Because all these teaching moments, if it is indeed that's all suffering does, is that it teaches you, okay? Then go stand, hey, don't do it. But if that was the case, if that was really what is the absolute nature of suffering, that it teaches you, that it exists just to teach you, that's it, that's its ultimate nature, then I would, as a compassionate being, as a loving being, I would tell you, go get suffering, okay? Because it will teach you. It will make you enlightened. Go stand in front of that bus. You will have beautiful teaching experience. Get your heart broken, smashed. You will have a, experience, okay? The thing is, because it, depending on the person who's having the experience, rather than this being a way to just continue dysfunctional way of existing, where we are beating ourselves up, where we are making ourselves having experiences that we no longer, that we do not wish to have, where we are keeping ourselves away from experiences that we want to have, this dysfunctional way of being. When you are becoming mature, where everything, it's not just suffering is the teacher and everything else is not a teacher, that you are becoming sensitive enough to be present with what's going on, then you can learn. What is it about this experience that make it not it? What in you is so wise to tell you this is not it? What's wrong? Why should I put my hand in fire and not be in bliss? It is not the nature of the hands that we have when it encounters something that we know has fire, that when we in communication with each other, in touch with each other, that it gives bliss. That is not the nature of it. That's not what it does. What does it do? When those two things encounter each other, the fire causes a kind of no longer the hand remaining as it is, the way we know it. It causes a transformation that you do not want. So the suffering is telling you that is not what you want. This destruction that is happening to your hand is not what you want. So if you are someone who's attuned, then the lesson you've learned is my hands being in the condition that they are, they cannot be introduced to this thing called fire. I either have to do something to the nature of fire or to the nature of my hands, and then maybe they can communicate and they will produce bliss. But for now, the way my hands are, the way fire is, when they are communicating with each other, that's what is right now. I may wish for my hands to experience bliss when I touch his fire, but that's not what it is right now. So the suffering is telling you that is not the situation. And what is actually happening right now is something that you don't want to have. Okay? And the reason that I'm presenting it as my hands in the conditions that they are right now, fire in the condition that it is right now, that means it's not absolute. Perhaps there's something you can do with your hands, there's something you can do to the fire where they can actually have a conversation, they have a communion with each other, and then you experience bliss. But that's not what the condition that it is right now. So when we are having an experience that is suffering, suffering is telling us, first, understand that the reason that we are aware of suffering, first of all, understand that it's through wisdom, it's a spark of wisdom within us that is awakened, that is talking to us. The spark of wisdom is telling us this is not it. And how do you ensure yourself that this is not it? Look at it. Rather than have a peek at it and then you turn away and you say, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. No. You're not knowing that this is not it. If you don't know that this is not it, you're just going to run into it later on somewhere else. Because you don't know that this is not it, you're going to encounter it somewhere else that is not it, or somewhere else that is not it. So stop running around, distracting ourselves from this experience so that the wisdom that is awakened, that is talking to us, we can hear it. Okay. So now slowly go into the territory that I don't want to go into, but I have to go into. Because slowly I'm getting there. Okay, in a way it is teaching you. And the way to fulfill this wish that is in the experience itself is to stay with the experience to the degree that you can stay. And I did say distraction may be a skill you need to employ if what is going on is just too much for you. But know that if the only way out is through it. Okay? It's not that there's some benevolent being out there create this vast wall of pain and says, if you wanna meet me, come through that wall. And you can say, well, I guess in a way that wall is a kind of a gift. But what a sadistic thing. Right? But understand it this way instead. Suffering is a sign that we are not in alignment with our truth. The more distant we are from our truth, the stronger the suffering will be. If we allow ourselves to be mature, that is to face reality as it is, not with preconceived ideas of what it's supposed to be and then wishing upon it to be something else, but seeing it for what it is, then we will be able to allow that to become a teaching moment. And what is it that we are knowing? And this is very important. We are knowing this is definitely not it. Why the emphasis of this is definitely not it? That means, in a way, we have sort of wandered from our natural state. We have ventured away from our natural state. I'm gonna say it again. We have traveled away from our natural state. Instead of stating not only this is not it, but maybe something else, but rather just sticking with this is not it. In a way, this is telling you the it is already here. Your nature is always with you. Your nature doesn't go away on vacation somewhere, and you have to go find your nature. Your nature is already here. And by sitting through the experience that is present, for example, I am angry. I'm angry. And that's what is actually happening. Yes, it is presented that anger is a destructive emotion. We should not nurture it. But when they say we should not nurture it, doesn't mean that we should distract ourselves from it. Okay? So what is happening? So be with what is happening. What is going on in this very experience? There's a sensation that I'm having that I'm wishing that I'm not having. There's something that I'm hearing that I'm wishing that I'm not having, that I'm not hearing. Why is it important for me not to hear that? Why is it for me not to have this experience? And the only way for us to know why is to be with it. It is actually shouting at us why we shouldn't. And what are some of the methods of being distracting ourselves from, I don't want this, in trying to not experience this? We shout, we yell, we defend. All these are just distractions. They're not really dealing with the anger. When we are dealing with the anger is there, we are uncomfortable, and all the other things are there, but there's a certain level of centeredness, a certain level of being able to just observe the experience. And as you're observing the experience, there is this strong urge within me that does not want this to continue. We don't just get on a horse and then run away from it, but just stay, there is this urge within me that doesn't want this to continue. And you stay with it. You don't just run away because there's this urge for it not to be there. Stay with it. There's this urge for me not to have this experience. And it's also present. You acknowledge it, that it's there too. And the anger will eventually communicate to you what is it about this situation, because of the nature of who you are, just like my nature of my hand, because of the nature of what you encountered. When these two come together, this is the effect. If you don't want to have this effect, if you don't want the fire to burn your hand, but you want them to communicate, you can keep them away from each other, or transform your hand somewhere, or transform the fire somehow. If you don't want this experience where you're angry, where you're upset, where whatever's going on, stay away from the thing that is triggering you because you're not able to deal with it at the moment. But when you gain strength, stay with it. Then eventually you will know that, it's like when you finally know yourself, then that quote that Nizam did in the email. When you know yourself, then you change. The very fact of knowing yourself, you change. That means there was a way that we were holding ourselves to be, and we're no longer holding ourselves to be that, and that is gone now. So we've changed. So flirting with in the direction where I have a problem with suffering. When there is the experience of suffering, in that moment, if you're mature, it's an opportunity where you can come to know truth. In the 12 links of dependent origination that most of us know, it begins with ignorance, and then it ends with suffering. To reverse that wheel, we have to begin with suffering. And then we will end up with wisdom. If you begin with ignorance, you will end up with suffering. But if you begin with suffering, you will end up with wisdom. Okay? Because there is a way of presenting the Bodhisattva ideal as an understanding. Look at all these beings, these beautiful beings who are by nature blissful. And through some impossible means, they are experiencing themselves as the complete opposite of it. So if we understand that when we are having an experience that we do not want, it means that we need to be present with whatever is going on. And that wish, that aspiration to no longer have this experience, there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually sane to have that wish to no longer have the experience. But the way to do it is to look at suffering, be present with it. And perhaps in some universe somewhere, beings don't need suffering to learn, to grow. But in our universe, where we are, and I'm presenting this as the possibility, maybe there are other ways of existing in the universe, different universes where suffering is not a way of is not a way of learning. But in our universe, there is an experience that we can call suffering. And it is not there is not an agency, there's not an agent behind it, but rather it is simply the effect of being in misalignment with our truth, with our nature. So when suffering comes, being with it doesn't mean, like, if someone is causing you suffering, doesn't mean that let that person continue to make you suffer. That's not what it means. Okay? And to the best, as skillfully as you can, you have to stop that person. Okay? And don't think of it in terms of how to blame yourself for your experience. Don't go into this dysfunctional way of dealing with suffering. To blame yourself. I'm going to this, I'm blaming myself. And you just go into a spiral where you're not fulfilling the wish to come out of it. There's an experience that I do not wish to have. What is this experience? And look at it. And we will come to uncover so many different layers to it. The complexity of it, the psychological, the energetic, the philosophical, all these layers we begin to uncover. And this is not to tell you go look for suffering so you can be enlightened, but it just happened to run into it in those rare moments. It just comes to visit you. Know that if you stay with it, it's an opportunity for you to find your nature. It is along the same line as when someone is given the instructions on how to find the true nature of reality, where we are told to be with the misunderstanding. Have a direct sense of knowing the misunderstanding. And the misunderstanding itself will help you find the true nature of reality. So the suffering that is telling you this is not it, it's like, say, oh, this is not it? Okay, show me. What is it then? What is it then? So it's there, since it's telling you this is not it, that means it's within it, there's the capacity, it has within it the capacity to show you what it is. Okay, this is not it. Okay, what is it then? And how do you come to know what it is? What is it? You stay with it. And what's going on when you're staying with it? This sucks. This is painful. I hate this. I don't want this. And this is what's going on. Stay with it. What else is going on? What else is going on? Oh, I'm having these thoughts about murdering somebody. What else is going on? Just what is going on? That is suffering giving you wisdom. Allowing yourself to see what's actually present. Eventually, right? Allowing yourself, developing the muscle, developing the habit of being present with suffering is giving us the capacity to strengthen our capacity to be present. And what is it that is always present? Your true nature is always present. And because we develop the capacity to be aware of what is always constantly present, eventually, through the door of suffering, we will encounter our true nature. So because of that, people say suffering is the door to enlightenment. And I will say, maybe in our universe, that's a kind of a truth, but I'm not going to say it's absolute. And it doesn't mean that go find yourself some suffering that you don't have, and then that will help you get enlightened. But when it comes to you and the instinct to run away, honor it by staying with it. Then it will go away. And by going away means now you will align yourself with the truth. And remember, it's complex. It has layers. The first layers may be, oh, this stinks. This is awful. I hate this. And keep staying with it. Let the actual things that are happening, let them arise. I want to kill you. Don't go kill. But that thought is there. And being with it. Okay? And then eventually, while you're looking at it, there'll be you will begin to have a certain stillness that becomes steady. And you're able to see it clearer and clearer. Oh yeah, this is something I definitely don't want. Remember, that's the real universal teaching of suffering. This is what you really don't want. Perhaps you may come to realize that, oh, honey is actually good for me. There's a way for me to enjoy it because you've allowed yourself to be with it. I'm not saying if you're allergic to honey, go force yourself to have honey, okay? But eventually, you develop the capacity to be with something that is difficult. Then that capacity to be with what difficult gets stronger and stronger. That is the capacity to be present. And what is it that is always present? And suffering is telling us, is teaching us that your true nature is blissful, you're misaligned. Then you will eventually get you eventually arrive to taste that fundamental nature. How do you taste that fundamental nature? This is it. The experience of being angry, for example. You don't distract yourself by lashing out, by breaking things. You don't need to. That's not necessarily the way of dealing with it. That is distracting yourself from it. It comes back again, and it gets worse, and you have less and less control. Right? So do not distract yourself. Do not shout. Do not bing, but be with it. I want to kill somebody. Oh, that's a thought. I want to, the anger is there. And eventually you will be able to look at that anger. Oh, that's why I was told to stay away from this thing. Look how it is strangling my heart. Look how it is causing me to have this and that. And you're able to look at it, be in rage, and yet be at the same time peaceful. And this very almost impossible thing will happen next. You're looking at this thing which is very ugly, unwanted, and you know, yeah, this is definitely something I don't want, while you're in a space where you're touching your nature. You're looking at anger, you're angry, that is, you're angry, and at the same time, you're blissful. And what is that bliss? I know I don't want that. I'm not fantasizing that I don't want it. I know I don't want it. Look at it. See? I'm seeing it from all sides. I know I don't want it. Okay. That is the reason why we are still in samsara. We don't really know we don't want it. We don't allow ourselves to really see this thing called samsara. And when you begin to look at it, we run away. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. Then you're going to be here forever experiencing this thing. You know, running through a cesspool instead of looking to see where's the shore so you can actually be out of the cesspool. Just, no. You're just stepping out of one part of the cesspool into another part of the cesspool and complaining that you're in the cesspool, you're jumping to another part of the cesspool. No, you don't really want to come out of the cesspool. Why? You don't really know that how yucky it is. Okay? So the meditation on, the purpose of the meditation on suffering is to know, this is what I really don't want. And I really, really, really don't want it. When you arrive at that place, then everything will be in alignment. You will find yourself only doing things that get you out. You don't have to struggle. I have to meditate for 15 minutes every day. I have to be nice to Seamus. Oh my God. If you really don't want it, and being nice to Seamus is the way to do it, you're gonna give Seamus every kind of wonderful thing that Seamus you can give to Seamus, because you really want what that gives you, and you really don't want what not giving that doesn't give you. And the only way for you to know this is not what I want, you have to look at what you don't want. Okay. And that's where we're supposed to have this strange relationship with suffering. It tells us, run away, but you don't run away this way. You run away towards it. Okay. And then when you do that, it's like a demon. This is really the last thing I'm going to say. It's like a demon. What's the purpose of a demon? The purpose of a demon appearing in your life is for you to destroy it. Because in destroying the demon, you reclaim your power. Okay? The purpose of suffering is to get rid of it. How to get rid of it? You face it. And like I said, maybe you could say something, but sorry. I didn't give you a chance to talk. Maybe in some other day we can have because I really would like us to discuss, especially the point where we will want to turn this into a spiritual practice, our understanding of it. And especially the dysfunctional way of thinking that, suffering is good for you. No, the purpose of suffering is the thing to get rid of. That's what it's good for. Right? Remember, you're mighty beings, mighty creators. What you create is created. You create suffering, it is created. I said that was the last one, but this is really the last one. Remember the Bodhisattva, look at you, beautiful beings, your nature is blissful, and yet you're suffering. Based on that, when you witness yourself suffering, you're witnessing how mighty powerful you are. Here you are, your nature is blissful. In some impossible way, you're making your nature experience something called suffering. My goodness, you're powerful. You're able to make yourself experience something that is not you. Wow, how did you do that? Use that same power to experience something else. Because you already done the impossible. So the other thing is easy. Okay, all right, read it, that's it. Bye.
Great discussion.
Thank you, Seamus. All right, so like I said, I was not going to be presenting the classical presentation of suffering, the 8 suffering, the 6 suffering, the 3 sufferings. It helps, but it's just decorations for the library in your mind. Okay, whatever it is that's going on, that you want to go on, that's it. That's the 6, that's the 8, that's the 3. Okay, and if you want to know the 6, the 8, the 3, go read a book. All right. Yeah, it's okay. We don't even have time for you to say anything. You have something you can say for like 2 seconds?
So you were saying something about 2 diverging paths.
Yeah.
What is that? I don't know if you probably said that, or maybe you said that come here and it diverges in the process of observing suffering. There are 2 paths, or what suffering teaches us. There are 2 paths. I suffer a lot, so I'm asking. So
yeah, in trying to deal with it, we go into the direction of distraction, thinking that we are actually freeing ourselves from the suffering. Mm-hmm. But what we are actually doing is just we are keeping the suffering as a companion and actually collecting more companions.
Great.
And the other way is to look at it, know that you're suffering, and let the suffering teach you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And don't go out, don't make suffering to some sort of deity. Okay, neither. It's neither a demon nor a deity, but it could be a demon, it could be a deity, depending on who you are. Okay. All right. Very short meditation to end. I hope you can hear the bell. Take a nice deep breath, connect to the point, connect to the memory. You know, when you are in meditation, and let yourself fall into that space of the meditation, of just the memory. And as you let yourself go, notice the signs arising in the body, and notice the signs arising in the breath and the mind. Rejoice in the presence, stay with them. Be thankful to that intelligence within you that for whatever gift it may have given you tonight in your understanding of suffering. And because of this gift, you wish to honor it. Make a determination to deepen your understanding of it. Okay, feel the sense of us. Everyone is in your place, sitting in a circle. It's us, very strong. In the very center, there's the embodiment of the usness arising as a light presence. And as we continue to see each other as part of ourselves, that light extends and grows, enveloping in everything, everyone into it, until it expands and include everyone, everything in the world, whatever the world is for you, the planet, the solar system, the universe, whatever feels real for you. And have this understanding, just like your right hand goes to help the left hand, thinking that that's me. Have that sense towards the ocean, towards the rivers, towards your neighbors, towards the sky, towards the mountains, towards everything that lives, that exists. Have that sense of us. And after a certain time, that sense of us in this way becomes sort of set. And because it is now set, you don't need this imagery to help you have that understanding. Then that big ball of light begins to shrink. And as it shrinks, what it incorporated, what it enveloped, has its distinctive, separate appearance. And yet there's a sense of us while honoring the separateness, until it becomes just that ball of light in our center. It connects to each one of our hearts. And we have the sense of, when I truly help myself, I'm helping all of us. When I'm helping all of us, I am helping myself. And with this realization, that light now dissolves into each one of our hearts. And get ready to come out of the meditation. First, dedicate. Think of whatever it is that is of concern to you, and dedicate what your gifts to help address that concern. To all the troubled places on the planet, may peace be, that there be genuine taste of peace, and may it spread everywhere. Gyo di gyo kun Sunam yeshe tsogzo shin Sunam yeshe le zhongwe Tamba kunyi tobar shu. And get ready to come out of the meditation. Feeling ready, feeling that you are in meditation and you're going to come out of it, noticing the signs, rejoicing in the presence. Take a nice deep breath. And as you exhale, let yourself reconnect with your immediate surroundings. And deliberately, consciously reconnect with your sense of touch, sense of hearing, and sense of sight. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, very, very, very last thing. When you're on the spiritual path, you definitely have a guide who doesn't want you to suffer. If you're suffering, it's because that guide knows you have within you the strength to face it and overcome it and grow. And that's really the last thing. All right. Good night.
Namaste.
Good
night.